very little, because first of all, the EU have made it increasingly clear that the backstop is not really up for renegotiation. They've said that the withdrawal agreement is done and dusted. Now, is that a bluff, as some here would argue? Well, possibly there is an element of bluff there, but what is certain is that simply going back and asking for some unspecified alternative arrangements rather than making some sort of constructive, workable proposal that the EU might be able to live with isn't going to get Theresa May or indeed the UK anywhere. So this really looked like just a recipe for the same loop we've been in for the past couple of months, which is the UK Parliament scrabbling around desperately but not being able to come up with anything realistic.
So critics of Bradys' proposal from within inside the Conservative Party seem to say that it's just too vaguely worded, but what you're saying is that it doesn't matter how precise the language is, the concept's never going to get approved.
Well, I think the problem is that it is very vaguely worded, and the EU aren't going to like that. If it were precisely worded in a way which might just about make it at least an opening bid for new negotiations with the EU, then it would lose the support of hard Brexiteers. And once again you have Theresa May and the leadership of the Conservative Party prioritising trying to keep the Conservative Party together rather than coming up with a realistic negotiating position. And frankly, we know from experience that isn't going to work.
One thing that Theresa May has repeatedly insisted upon as part of a negotiating strategy is holding open the possibility of no deal, because she's argued without that she'll have no leverage if there are to be future negotiations with the European Union. A number of the amendments that may be selected tonight for a vote involve ruling out no deal. What's the point of that proposal, do you think, given that you can rule something out, but unless you have an alternative, it doesn't matter?
That is indeed the problem, because of course the default is, under the operation of Article 50, we will be leaving the EU on March 29th without a deal if there is no deal. So what the main amendment tries to do, the so-called Cooper-Bolton amendment, is to say that the Prime Minister would have to request an extension of Article 50 from the EU. Now, actually, the EU probably, given that the alternative would be no deal, and no one really wants that, would probably agree to that. But that's really just kicking the can. Of course, the EU is actually quite good at kicking the can. We've seen this before in the Eurozone crisis. So it may well happen. But obviously it doesn't really solve the long-term problem. And again, the problem remains the UK Parliament is so far at least incapable of coming up with a majority behind one particular way out of this crisis.
Are you concerned that there is a movement towards no deal that, in the words of Sabine Weyand yesterday in Brussels, she's one of the chief negotiators in Michel Barnier's team, that the UK is essentially heading towards no Brexit almost by accident?
Well, I think, as one Twitter commentator, I think quite rightly put it, saying that we could get there by accident isn't really right. We do have a sovereign parliament. If we get there, it will be because of willful ignorance, stupidity and incompetence on behalf of both the government, Theresa May, and and collectively our MPs. If they want to stop no deal, and of course the vast majority of them do want to stop no deal, it's really up to them to find a majority solution, a majority that gets behind a solution which isn't no deal. Whether that's Theresa May's deal, some alternative deal, a second referendum, which at least would throw it back to the people to select a new government and new MPs, or a second referendum. And I think at this point, quite frankly, many of us would say actually simply settling on one of those alternatives rather than continue to blunder around would be preferable.
One final question before I let you go. For those people watching across Europe, whether they're business owners, investors, ordinary citizens, is there going to be any further clarity by tomorrow morning?
I think, as I've explained, neither of the two main amendments that are going to be voted on will in themselves solve anything very much. So we will know more about the balance of power within Parliament by tomorrow. We'll know more about just how weak Theresa May's position. We'll know more about the next steps, but we won't know where we're going now.
Hi, I'm Joanna Bersecci, and thank you for watching. You can check out more of our videos by clicking on the boxes on the screen. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more from CNBC International. Thank you for watching.